Hi, I'm Andy Bose, the Director of Data and Eligibility at School Food Solutions, and this is your free and reduced eligibility and meal application training for California for 25-26. We're going to be going through just a general overview of meal eligibility, application processing procedures, and then we're going to deep dive into the California application. We're going to do a little practice and then wrap it up. So to start, what is eligibility? Why do we need to determine eligibility for students? So under California's Universal Meal Program, all students are eating for free. So this does feel like, why do we even need to do this? Firstly, it's required by the USDA. So you are participating in the USDA's National School Lunch Program. So applications must be made available to families, and also under California regulation, direct certification matching has to be done monthly. So this determines where funding for meal reimbursements is coming from. Either way, your school's going to get paid back for the meals that it serves. But depending on if the student who ate the meal qualifies for free, reduced, or doesn't qualify for extra benefits, that determines how much the federal government is reimbursing for the meal versus the state government. So free and reduced meals, it's more money coming from the federal government and less money coming from the state. And the more students who qualify for free or reduced meals means that's better for the state as far as being able to continue to fund the Universal Meal Program over time. These applications also help your school receive local control funding formula dollars, or LCFF, and any other sources of funding that are based on eligibility. There's a lot that is. It also helps the eligible families qualify for benefits for their household, like Sunbucks, which is a big one. That's summer EBT. Child care, bus passes, testing fee waivers, college application fee waivers, etc. So it can have a lot of benefits for this individual students who qualify as well. So when a student turns in a meal application, they can qualify for reduced or free status by reporting household income below 185% of the federal poverty line. So each year, families have to reapply because each year the federal poverty line calculation is redone, and these thresholds for eligibility change. So the charts you see here are this year's thresholds based on household size and annual income. So in addition to that, a family could also list a case number for anyone who lives in the household that participates in a qualifying assistance program. So that means CalFresh, otherwise known as SNAP or Supplemental Nutrition, CalWorks, otherwise known as TANF or Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or FDPIR, Food Distribution Program on Indian Reservations. Also, if the family can report that the student is homeless, runaway, receiving migrant education services, or a foster child, then that would also qualify those students for free, but those situations do have to be confirmed by school or agency personnel. In addition to the application, students could potentially also qualify for free or reduced meal eligibility automatically through what we call direct certification. So direct certification is done in CalPads. Students are matched, your student records from your school are matched with state agency records for students who participate in those qualifying assistance programs. So again, CalFresh, CalWorks, and this also includes Medi-Cal or Medicaid. So students who qualify as participating in these programs based on their income eligibility are automatically eligible for free or reduced meals. Also, siblings of anybody who is directly certified are also kind of granted an extension of that eligibility. So anyone in a household with a child that qualifies as free or reduced should also qualify as free or reduced in the vast majority of situations. And then again, homeless status, runaway status, migrant education status, and foster status If you could pull that out of CalPads, that would also qualify a student for free or reduced eligibility. So families will need to know if they qualify for benefits. So what happens is after an application is processed or a direct certification is processed, we will mail home a letter letting them know their status. If they were directly certified, we tell them that they don't need to complete an application. If they already did, it's no big deal. The direct certification kind of takes precedent as their reason for being eligible. And then School Food Solutions will also mail home a letter to each family who has an application that gets processed and let them know their status. So it will tell them if they qualify as free, qualify as reduced, or if they don't qualify. So folks that are not eligible for benefits, it will have some information about how to appeal that decision. But please contact School Food Solutions if you have any family who believes they should have qualified and didn't. Usually this is a simple issue. There may have been a calculation error or just a processing problem that we can fix without needing to go through any kind of formal appeal. And then for folks at the school, how will you guys know who completed an application or who's eligible through direct certification? What School Food Solutions does for you is send you what we call student status lists. During back to school time, we send these every week, every other week. As it slows down, this will come about once a month. This list will tell you everyone who's eligible, who's gotten directly certified, or who turned in an application. And then we ask that you just review these to make sure that we're not missing any siblings that need extended benefits. And also these need to be shared with your CalPads administrators because they should be updating the 181 free meal program and 182 reduced price meal program records in CalPads for those students who qualify. Another thing that's required as part of participating in the National School Lunch Program is verification. So this happens every October. A 3% sample chosen at random of your eligible applications will get selected for verification review. Those families are going to need to provide us some kind of documentation to back up what they put on their meal application. So this could be, pay stubs is the most common, or a letter from their employer, or a tax return, depends on their situation. But they need to prove their income that they listed on the application with some kind of backup documentation. Again, this is only 3% of the applications that qualify, that go through this process each year. If the family doesn't respond or provides documentation that doesn't match what they put on their application, they may have their eligibility status changed from free or reduced to paid. In California, they're still eating for free. That doesn't have any actual consequences for their day-to-day meal benefit, but that would change how they're categorized in CalPads and their eligibility for things like Sunbucks and other programs. We handle verification on your behalf. We're going to get you more information about that in late September. All right, so now let's talk about processing the applications. What we're going to do, what your school's going to do, the whole 9 yards. So, what does School Food Solutions do to support you in the world of eligibility? We provide this training. This training should be shared with anybody who's going to be managing applications. We create and share a compliant application packet for each school each year. We ensure that your school's point of sale system, where these applications get processed, is configured and rostered and ready to go for the school year. We process all complete applications within 10 operating days of receiving them. We will communicate back with you if there are any apps that have issues that we can't process, so that you can reach out to the families to get that fixed. We upload those direct certifications lists into your school point of sale system to keep track of who is directly certified. We generate and mail those notification letters to the families, whether they qualify via direct certification or turn in an application. We send you status lists on a regular basis to help you keep track of which students have been directly certified or submitted an app. We answer any questions from families or school about applications and eligibilities, and we manage the verification process in October each year. So with all that, what does your school need to do? One, you need to make the application packets available to families. You cannot force every family to complete an application. There's usually not a need to do that. And it's, they can opt out of filling it out. But you want to make it as available as possible because, again, it has benefits for families, it has benefits for your school. So the more available it is, the better. You can distribute it at back to school events, send it home with students in paper, post a link to it on your website, however it makes sense for your school to distribute it. You also want to make sure you have a person or a team identified who's going to be responsible for collecting these applications. And whoever is a part of that team needs to complete this training to make sure that they know everything they need to know. And then that team needs to develop a system to review, scan, and store applications. We're going to get into that, but basically each application that you receive, we ask that you quickly check to make sure it has all the required info, scan it to School Food Solutions in a timely manner, and then store it in a secure location because you are responsible for holding on to those original applications. And then lastly, your CalPads administrator could send the direct certification extracts on a monthly basis to us so that we can make sure we qualify as many students as possible. So let's get into all of those things that your school is gonna need to do. So one is the application packet. So we're gonna provide this to you after you complete this training. It's got a letter to household that has instructions for families. You need to share the whole packet with your families. Please also take a look just to review it for accuracy. So it should have the current school year, it should have the right school name, it should have the right people and phone numbers for your school on it. But if you see any problems, let us know ASAP and we'll get it fixed. Be sure to make sure that families are turning in this year's application. If they submit an older form, they're going to have to do it again. They need to do it on the most current form. And we will provide these packets to you in English and Spanish. By default, if you need any other languages, let us know. We have access to some translations in other languages. We're going to provide you also with this quick check document. This is a great thing to have printed out, maybe laminated, put wherever applications are processed. This will remind you and your team of the things to check for on an application. So we're going to get into all of these common issues when we deep dive into the application, but I wanted you to know that you're going to have this reference to refer back to when you're processing applications of what is required for it to be an application we can process. We're also going to share this application procedures document, which is going to go through how to send the applications to us and all the steps you should, follow with that. The big thing that we want to talk about here is make sure that you send us the applications as soon as you get them. No need to hold on to them until you feel like you have enough to make it worth sending. We have to process them within 10 days to be compliant. So if you get it, please have a process of reviewing all the apps you receive each day and scanning those to us. When you scan forms to us, we ask that you put in the subject of the email and the name of the file that you attach, your school name and the date. And then if you're sending multiple batches in the same day, you can add a batch number to that. But basically we keep it straight by school name and date. And all those applications need to be scanned and emailed to forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org. One thing I want to make clear here is you're not scanning each application separately and saving it by student name. If you need to do that for your internal systems, feel free. What we need is one big batch of all the applications received in a day. That makes it easier for us to process when they come through in batches like that. So no need to send individual files. PDFs that are batch scanned is best. Also, storing original applications. For audit purposes, you need to hold on to the original applications for 3 years. So depending on the number of applications you receive, you need to have a plan for keeping those organized and stored. Some schools use these A to Z file folders. Those are super handy. You could also use a binder. If you're doing that, we ask that you use page protectors so that we're not hole punching the applications. You could also just, use a plain file folder if you only get a few applications each year. Just whatever will work for your system in your school, but just keeping all the ones that we get for each school year together, preferably alphabetized in case we need you to pull for an audit. Last bit of important data that we need from your team is those CalPADS direct certifications list. So your CalPADS administrator should have access to these direct certification extracts each month. They're usually available by the 10th of the month. And that first month is July, and that's the most important. So as soon as you get that July DC list, send that to us ASAP, because that's going to qualify the bulk of your students that are going to be directly certified are going to be on that first July DC list. And then email those to forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org. We will remind you each month about this if we're not getting them from you proactively. And we will send you a secure Dropbox link that you can use to securely upload the files. And if it's applicable to your school, in addition to the CalPADS direct certification extract, you could also send the homeless list, the 5.5, and the foster list 5.7, if you have any students who qualify for those. All right. As we're processing your applications and direct certifications, we are keeping track of each student's eligibility. We are going to send you on a regular basis a status list to let you know where everybody stands. So in the column labeled eligibility, you're going to see each student's current status, free, reduced, or paid. The students who are highlighted yellow are going to be the ones that don't have anything on file for the current year. So at the beginning of the year, there is a 30-day carryover period from last year's eligibility to the new school year. So you may see some kids categorized as free or reduced, highlighted yellow. That means that was their status from last school year, and it will expire 30 days into the current school year. So those students should not get put into CalPADS as free or reduced for the current school year, because that was their status last year, and it will expire if they don't turn in a new application or get directly certified again. So that's important to note also. Only the students who are not highlighted yellow have a current status for the current year. Please review these lists when we send them to you, and email us if you see any problems. Specifically, take a look for siblings. You know your families better than we do. Your point of sale system tries to match siblings based on address, but it misses it sometimes depending on how their data is in the system. So if you see siblings who have mismatched statuses, one is free, one is paid, that kind of thing, let us know, and we can extend the eligibility from one sibling to the other in your system so that they both qualify. And then again, your CalPADS administrators should get this list when we send it. Please forward it to them if they're not included, and they need to update the CalPADS to represent anybody who's not highlighted and has free or reduced eligibility. They should be updating that in CalPADS or your student information system. An additional thing that's happening this year is Sunbucks data uploads. So Sunbucks is a program created by federal law, and in California, it's administered by the Department of Social Services in partnership with the Department of Education. And it helps families with school-age children buy groceries during the summer months. So that's its goal, because children might not have access to school meals like they do during the rest of the school year. So Sunbucks are put on an EBT card, a debit card that the families are going to get in the mail, and each eligible child receives a card worth $120 to buy groceries. So that comes out to $40 for each of the 3 months that the summer covers. For this summer, meal applications received through September 1st, 2025 will qualify any free or reduced students for summer EBT for 2025, which they'll get kind of late in the fall, but they'll get that $120 for summer 2025, and that will also qualify them for summer 2026. So it's kind of, if you, as many applications as you can receive by September 1st, the better, because that qualifies them for both, and you have less work to do later in the year, kind of reminding folks that if they want Sunbucks, they should complete an application. CalPADS administrators will need to submit a list of students who have been approved for free or reduced eligibility based on an application, so not our directly certified students, just the application students, to the CDE's Education Data Collection System, or EDCS. We will provide this upload file for your team in September after we've collected all the applications through September 1st. We'll also provide you another upload file at the end of the school year for anybody who turned in an application after September 1st so that they can get those 2026 Sunbucks benefits. This is new this year, so make sure that your CalPADS administrator is aware of this and that we're going to provide those files for you. All right, a few important dates to review. The first thing I want you to know is that we will send you your application packets for the 25-26 school year once we get proof that this training has been completed, and we'll talk about that at the end. And then, and once your point of sale system is updated with a new roster for the new year. We're not able to process applications if the students aren't in the system, so we have to work around that as well. July 1st is when applications at the earliest can be released to families. Anything collected before July 1st is for last school year. July 1st is when 25-26 officially begins. Around July 10th, possibly sooner, direct certification lists for the new school year are usually available. So ask your CalPADS administrator to pull those and send them to us. There's also that 30-day carryover. So students who were free or reduced last school year will have that same status applied to them for the first 30 operating days of this school year. So make sure School Food Solutions has a copy of your 25-26 school year calendar. We use that to set your 30-day deadline of when this carryover expires. September 1st, again, is the deadline for families to submit applications if they want to qualify for summer 2025 Sunbucks, as well as summer 2026. And October 1st is when verification starts, and some families will get notified by us that they need to provide some evidence of the income they put on their application. All right, if you have online applications, and that's not everybody, so just if your school uses online applications, when we send you your applications, we're also gonna send you a link to your online application, and we're gonna send you some additional links that the CDE requires that you put on your website. So if that applies to you, we will send that when we send you your applications. All right, let's talk about the application itself now. We're going to look into the template and see all the different parts and what you need to check for when you receive applications back from families. The format of the application has not changed, so if this is, not your first year doing this, it should look familiar. Families need to complete step 1, either step 2 or step 3, and step 4. One thing here, you at the school do not need to be writing anything on the applications in most cases. The only exception would be corrections, which we'll get into in a minute. But you don't need to stamp it with a received date. You don't need to fill out the school use only part. Just no need to write on it at all. Just review it, and if there's an issue, we'll get into what to do if there's a problem. Let's dive into step 1. Step 1 is naming all the children that live in the household. Now, the form does say student info, but this is where they need to list all children, even if they don't attend a school. So they can list the names, There's space for them to list the name of the school and the grade and the date of birth. Those are not required fields, but are super helpful for us to identify the kids in your point of sale system. And then they have the option, if the student is foster, homeless, migrant, or runaway, to check these boxes. But these are things that have to be confirmed by the school. So we might reach out to you if a student doesn't qualify in a different way but has one of these boxes checked. But what's absolutely required for step 1 is the names of all the children in the house. Again, school and grade level and birthday are nice to have, but not required. All right, step 2 is applicable to families who have someone in the household who receives benefits like CalFresh or CalWorks. Probably not FDPIR in most of your situations. So anyone in the household that participates in these programs counts. They need to check the program, either CalFresh or CalWorks, and then they need to enter a case number. So what you need to look out for here is if they've checked off one of these things in step 2, they also need to have a case number. Now, what that case number is going to look like depends. Sometimes it's a mix of letters and numbers. It's usually like 8 or 9 digits long. What it can't be is a 16-digit debit card number. That's kind of the most common mistake, is that folks take their SNAP debit card and they write that debit card number down. That is not a case number, and that is not acceptable. So if you see a 16-digit number there, you're going to have to contact the family and get their case number, which would be on any kind of letter that they get from the program. Another thing that's important to note is if they complete step 2 with a good case number, then you don't need to worry about anything listed in step 3, because just that case number qualifies the family for free benefits. If step 2 is incomplete or left blank, then step 3 is where the qualifying information is going to come from. Step 3 is where income information is listed. So there's a section at the top, part A, where they can list any student income. Most of the time this is blank. Students are not usually collecting income, so that can be left blank or a 0 there. But if the students listed in part 1 have a source of income, whether it's Social Security or a job, they can list that income here. The one thing to kind of watch out for, sometimes folks will use that to total up all the income of the adults below, thinking that it's like a total income for everybody. So if we see kind of a duplicate amount there, we might need to check with the family to make sure that's not student income, but was just a mistake on the form. Okay, in part B, this is kind of the big part of the application. They need to list each adult household member's name along with their income and the frequency that they get that income. So if they leave it blank, it does say that we're assuming they mean $0 income. It is nice though when people just write 0, because then it makes it more clear, but they can leave it blank. They need to be reporting their gross income before any deductions, not just what they take home. And then under how often, they need to write like an amount, like $500, and then they need to write how often. So if that was weekly, they would put a W, bi-weekly is 2W. This is all written on the form. Twice a month is 2M, monthly is M, and yearly is Y. So we need to have some kind of amount of money matched with a frequency. The other thing that's included in the calculation is how many people total live in the household. So part C here is total household members. So what they should have is a number there that matches the number of names on the form. So if they had 3 kids and 2 adults, they should write the number 5. And then part D is Social Security number. They need to write the last 4 digits of one of the adult household members' Social Security number, or check the no Social Security number box. Either way. We don't really ask questions or do anything with the Social Security number, but they need to either indicate a number or check that box. All right, step 4, this is required of everyone, is a signature and date from the adult completing the application. So they need to sign it, they need to print their name. This adult, they need to write the current date when they filled out the form. Sometimes folks put like a birthday there. Just make sure that it's a current date after July 1st of the current year. It also, the person signing this should be someone who is listed on the application. So it can't just be another name, and it can't be a student. The contact info, again, is nice to have, but optional. So if they leave off their address or phone number or email, that's fine. All right. There's also a place where they can enter their children's ethnicity and ethnic and racial identities. This is also optional. The Spanish version of the form is 2 pages long. So something to watch out for there. It has the same 4 sections, listing students, listing CalFresh or CalWorks, income for the family, and then signature. The signature box, step 4, is on the back page. It's at the top of the back. So it's really important if you get Spanish applications that you are checking the front and the back and scanning both the front and the back to us, because we need that signature page with the date and everything. So, what should you write on the applications? Usually, nada, nothing. We are going to complete the school use only box on the copies that we receive. In the case of an audit, we will help you guys fill out this box on the original applications to present for the audit. You also do not need to be marking up the original applications with any kind of like stamps about when it was received or scanned or anything else. Try and keep track of that some other way, maybe Post-its. But we don't want to mark up the originals, so that way if you do get audited, we can make them work. Corrections are the only exception to this rule. So if an application is turned in missing something that's required or something is unclear, and we can't process it, then school personnel should reach out to the family to get correct information. And in those situations, family doesn't usually have to come in and like redo anything. You can just draw a line through anything that's like duplicate or inaccurate, but don't use whiteout or any kind of correction tape. Just drawing a line through is great. You can write in any additional information you get from the family, and then just add your initials and the date that you obtained that information next to the correction. So again, say they forgot to write the frequency for their income. You call and say, hey, it says you make $600. Is that weekly? If they say yes, you put the W and then just put your initials and the date next to that W that you added in there. All right, now's a chance to practice. So what I'm about to show you are a couple of forms that have been turned in, and want to see if you can spot why these forms would not be able to be processed. All right, so this is the checking that you need to do on forms when you receive them. This is kind of practice for that. All right, here's form number 1. I can see that they have 3 students. Step 1 looks fine. Step 2 is blank, which is totally fine. Step 3 has no student income. That's great. Part B has 2 adults listed. I see some income. I see 5 household members. That matches the number of folks on the form. It is Leslie who signed the form. She's good. The date, let's just pretend it's 2025. That's fine. It has a social security number. So what is missing? When I go to try and process this, I see $100,000 for Leslie and $100,000 for Ben, and I might want to assume that that's an annual income, but they didn't actually say that. So that's what's missing here, is the frequency. So we would have to call this family, confirm how often they get this amount of money. If it is annual, then you would just put a Y there for yearly. And then initial and date next to what you did. All right, here's another one. Again, our student section looks good. Step 2 is blank. All right, step 3 has an adult saying they make no money, and that is totally okay. It's signed, it's dated, it's got a social, it says 4 household members. Oh, I think I found the problem, right? It says there are 4 household members, but there's only 3 people listed on the form. So what you would do here is call the family and say, just wanted to confirm you have 4 household members. We have Alexis, David, and Johnny. Who's missing? And they can tell you that. If it's an adult, they can share their income information. You just write that in where it belongs, initial and date next to what you write in. All right, this one is a Spanish language application, but you can see it still has the same 4 steps. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got names of students, great. Step 2, it looks like they checked something, but they didn't put a case number. So that's going to be our issue here, because step 3, if there's no case number, you could look at step 3, and if it has income info, okay, we can just process it with the income info, but their step 3 is incomplete also. It doesn't have income info, it doesn't have total number of household members, it doesn't have Social Security. So the simplest way to fix this would be to reach out to the family and ask for that case number for their CalFresh benefits. Another thing to note on this one is this is an old form. So again, make sure that folks are using the current year's form, which they should be, but every now and then an old one slips through. So keep an eye out for that also. Good job. All right, let's wrap it up. So if you need additional support about anything to do with applications or eligibility, direct certification, rosters in your point of sale, any of this data stuff, email the School Food Solutions eligibility team. The best way to get in touch with us, anybody on our team, is forms, FORMS, at schoolfoodsolutions, that's with an S at the end, .org. This is the same email where you send the apps that you scan and where direct certification lists should be shared. So that's your one-stop shop, the first email you should reach out to. If you have some families who are trying to fill out an application and are just are confused by what they're supposed to put, or have an interesting situation that they don't know how to write it on the form, they can reach out to us directly. We're happy to talk it through with them. This is a toll-free number that they can call. If they press extension 2, that will take them to an English line. If they press extension 4, that will take them to a Spanish line. If we're not able to answer in real time, we will give them a call back in a timely manner. So always encourage them to leave a voicemail if they don't get an answer. And then if for some reason you need additional support, you could also reach out directly to me. I'm ANDEE, Andy, at schoolfoodsolutions.org, or you can reach out to your California client manager, Mr. Ryan Gomes, which is RYAN, at schoolfoodsolutions.org. All right, your next steps after this are to take the post-training quiz. It's super short, super simple. It's the link for that is in the email that we sent with this training. So please click that link, answer a couple of questions. That will let us know that you've completed the training and you're ready to receive your forms. Once we get someone at your school completing the training and finishing that quiz, we will know that you're ready for the forms, and we'll follow up with those via email. So please remember to take the quiz after you're done. And that's it. Thank you guys so much, and we appreciate your partnership as always, and let us know if you need anything at all. Thank you so much. Have a good school year.